The inequality in the American Civil War was ridiculous. If you're in the North, $300, and you could get out of the draft. Oh, you don't have to fight for your country. You got $300. And then if you were in the South, there was a bunch of people. There was public officials and teachers and somebody else. But anybody who owned 20 slaves or more didn't have to fight the war. If you owned 20 slaves or more, not only was the whole goddamn war surrounding you, not only was the entire war, they would draft a bunch of poor folks to fight for the 1% to own slaves. I wonder what the Confederate mantra would be. Let's fight for the 1% so they can enslave us all. Tutti frutti, all Rudy. That don't even... Okay, the inequality isn't just obscene, it's engineered. I want to mention this class warfare thing here in a second, but let's just go down this list. Confederate mantra would be like, we will fight and die. We will fight and die for the southern 1% so they can exploit and extort other people's labor. The 1% should be allowed to rape us all. We'll spill our blood so that way our overlords can sip mint juleps on stolen backs. Let the 1% enslave us and rape us and rob us all. Who gives a damn? Let them work us like a damn mule, and if we say, hey, we deserve liberty and freedom and dignity as well, let them eat cake. They probably throw us in a damn ditch, though. The rich have lots of free labor to steal from. What would happen? So if you're a Confederate and you're a poor yeoman, farmer, you know, you're part of the 75% who don't own any people. Apparently I got some general numbers here. 5% of the South own more than 20 slaves. So 5%, the ruling class, the 5% who essentially just put their fucking boot on other people's necks and stole their goddamn labors. The whole war was all around their fucking slave, you know, goddamn plantation, their slave aristocracy, the pipe dream of Jefferson Davis. 5% of the South owned more than 20 slaves. 25% of the South owned at least one slave. So that means 75% of the South were non-slave owners. There's going to be 300,000 rebels that are going to die. 94,000 of the rebels, at least 94,000 of the rebels who died, didn't have any slaves. So, at the very least, they were drafted against their will. They didn't want to do that. Maybe they got $1. But I just wonder how many goddamn racist whites were like, you know what? As long as we maintain this social dictatorship, then I'll at least have, you know, I can tell that old black person over there to, you know, turn the other way, avert your eyes. Which is what LBJ had said one time. If you could convince one person, if you could convince the poorest white person that they could lord over, you could rob them blind. You could pick their entire pockets. You could take their pensions. You could take everything. So the Confederates don't make any fucking sense. You're a bunch of poor folks fighting for the 5%. Well, and then if you think about the economics of slavery too, so the 5% own 20 or more, then let's just look at this Wade Hampton, who's going to be a South Carolina governor and then a South Carolina senator after the fucking Civil War, which I thought they were supposed to be banned from being in public office. But by having slavery, that suppresses wages. You can't compete with free, so even if you charge $1, you're still, you know, slaves can... So that suppresses your wages by having slavery. And then it kills any type of social mobility. You're penniless. You don't have any land. The slave-owning aristocracy owns all the land. They have all the credit. Even northern banks were lending to the southern plantation owners. So if you're a regular, we'll say poor white, even middle-class white, but if you're just starting out, right, so the child of a goddamn plantation aristocrat, they would have no money, no land, no housing, no anything, no wagons, no equipment, no So why would they fight and die for the fucking 1%? Why would they fight and die for the goddamn ruling class? What chance do you have to improve your lot in life? You're going to go out there and make a fucking dollar, if that. So slavery fucks up your economics. Slavery is mean and cruel and inhumane, but it fucks up your own economics. It fucks up your economic system. That's why you shouldn't get involved with the runaround Sioux. If I was you, I'd keep away from a runaround Sioux. Hey, hey, da 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 da, hey, hey. If the 1% class can't steal our labor, then how are they going to get anything accomplished? How will those lazy, ballsy, fascist fucks get any valuable work done? And get any money for it? The only way that the rich can provide any goods and services is through the blood, sweat, toil, and tear of others. So the lost cause is a rigged scam. The Confederate white was poorer than dirt, and then he's going to get buried in the dirt that was richer than him, and then you're going to have the goddamn Wade Hampton III's build over his graves. So the poor whites and the Confederacy police the pyramid scheme, all for a goddamn pat on the head. Will you at least give me a pat on the head, Daddy? So I was just talking with Grok here and just compare and contrast. What would the 20 slave rule be in our society today? Nothing directly comparable, because the whole fucking war is based upon these 5%, and then these 5% are saying, nope, we don't have to fight. But according to Grok, we come up with some things. He says that the all-volunteer military is kind of askew. It's kind of askew in some way. There hasn't been a draft since 1973, but recruits are disproportionately from low-income rural areas, while elites fill the officer roles and avoid enlistment via college or wealth. So the poor kids get the GI Bill bait, but the rich kids get the IV networks. I don't think that is much. This other one, carried interest loophole. Tax Code Section 1061 tweaks. So if they had to weigh in, they said that this carried interest loophole is huge. Hedge fund private equity moguls, your Mitt Romney types, their tax performance fees at 20% capital gains rate instead of 37% ordinary income, saving billions annually, averages $18 billion a year in dodged revenue. The wealth creators, pay less than a teacher. 13% effective rate for billionaires like Buffett funds the yacht while funding cuts to public schools. The other two things they mentioned is the 2008 financial bailout plus the foreclosure wave, and then legacy admissions and tax-advantaged education. So the carried interest loophole. That's like the fucking rich. They have it owned. They control the entire fucking society. The billionaires have way too fucking much. Meanwhile, there's people that actually starve on the street. They starve in America. They freeze to death in America. We actually got people that's living in the fucking sewers. That's how shitty we are. We don't give a fuck if you got health care. We don't give a shit if you're living in the fucking sewers. Meanwhile, people have billions of dollars, meaning that they have so much fucking money, even if they tried to spend that much money every fucking day, they couldn't even do it. Brewster's Millions, he was going to make it to where spending all that money was, you'd get sick of it. Unless you just handed it out to everybody. So the carried interest loophole to blatant wealth threshold exemption, letting the financial 1% managing $4 trillion plus assets treat sweat equity gains like passive inheritance, dodging the tax draft that the rest pay. It hoards billions of dollars that could house the homeless, feed the starving, while the billionaires whine about how awesome of great job creators that they are. Yeah, you create jobs for lawyers to close more loopholes. That's the jobs you're creating. The oppressor playbook eternal. You divide with racism, bootstraps, bullshit conquer, loopholes repeat. The history shows the crack shades rebellions forced